greenhouse because we're going to grab some gorgeous plants that I'm going to be using today as I get to do something I have been waiting months and months for, and that is to plant up some containers for the 2026 gardening season. But before I show you which gorgeous plants are going to go out into some of my containers, I'm going to ask everybody to please like and subscribe to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I am so glad that you found me. If you already subscribed, thank you so much for being here with me and hanging out. Oh my gosh, spring is here finally in my mid-Missouri garden. Just 2 days ago, it was 22 degrees and we had snow on the ground. And yesterday it was 65, 70. Today it's around 75 degrees and super hot and sunny. In fact, in the greenhouse, it's like 88 degrees in here. So I'm ready to get the plants and get outside and get them planted up. And my 10-day forecast looks awesome in terms of nighttime lows. It's going to be nowhere near freezing for quite a long time. And I hope we have turned the corner, but you know, gardeners, you got to be ready for anything. So who knows? But what I want to do now is I want to show you what I'm going to be planting, and then we're going to get to it. So here we go. I have been wanting hellebores in my garden. And what I decided this year is to purchase some hellebores. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to actually put these gorgeous hellebores in a pot. And they're going to be in that pot till probably the first week of May. So they're going to be in these containers for about 6 weeks. Hellebores are cool weather lovers. They love shade. And so that's what I'm going to do, is put them in a shady spot. You're going to see as I bring the camera along with me, I'm going to be potting up my 2 concrete urns that sit on our front porch. We have a heavily shaded front porch. It's got a very big overhang, so they're going to be in shade the majority of the day. So hellebores are going to go in the pots, and then let me bring these in nice and close. I've decided to surround them with some pansies. Of course, these are cool weather annuals, and aren't they beautiful? That dusty purple rose I think will complement my hellebores that I'm going to put in the ground. When we get to the front porch and I actually start to pot things up, I'll give you the specifics on both of these plants. And what's important, I think, to note, these hellebores are perennials, and they were quite an investment. They're not inexpensive, but I've always wanted them in my garden. So the idea is they're going to be in these pots on my front porch for about 6 weeks, and then I'll remove them and I'll plant them in the landscape, and they're going to go on one of my north-facing beds because that gets loads of shade, and they love cool shade. So I think they're going to complement the other things I have growing on the north side of the house. So yeah, that's about it. We don't need much today in terms of supplies. I've got my plants. I'm going to grab some gloves. I'm going to grab some potting soil because I need to refresh the soil that are in those containers. And I might put a little bit of biotone root stimulator in the hole in the containers just to kind of give them a little oomph, because I don't know if you know this or not, but when you buy nursery plants like I did in terms of these beautiful petunias, they look this beautiful, lush, and full because the growers have been pumping them full of fertilizer all season long so that they're in bloom, they have buds, they look fresh, so that we'll buy them. And sometimes I have found when you take them out of the nursery containers and just stick them in crummy soil or soil with no nutrients, they kind of go into shock because they're like, hey, wait a minute. We've been getting a steady dose of fertilizer in our water all these weeks to grow, and now I'm getting nothing. So I think I'll put just a little bit in there, even though they're not going to stay in those containers more than about 6 weeks. But why not? I've got the fertilizer. So that's really all we're going to need. So I'm going to turn the camera around. I'm going to load up my sled that you guys that are coming to my channel again and again, you see I love to get around my 10-acre property using a scooter and pulling my supplies in a little sled behind it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull the things out of here, and then I'll show you which containers these are going to go in. So now that I've got all the supplies I need up here on my front porch, it's time to get busy. I don't know how well you'll be able to see today because half the porch is shaded right now and half is in the sunlight, but I will do my best. And the very first thing I need to do is I'm going to go ahead and remove some of the old soil from these 2 concrete urns. I try to refresh the soil or swap out the soil every year. And so this soil is a good year old. So I'm going to go ahead and remove most of it, and then I'll be adding some fresh soil. So that is step number 1. And I brought my tub truck here because I'm going to dig the soil out and put it in here. And this soil is not going to go to waste. This soil isn't bad soil, but annuals and things that need to grow fast need a lot of nutrition. This is okay soil, so once I dump it in here, I'm going to actually use it and I'm going to spread it in the bottom of our new raised beds as an amendment. So it's not going to go to waste. All right, so here's the soil that I took out of those 2. And again, this is going to be used again in another part of the garden. So I'll just set that aside. And now I'm going to use some nice fresh soil. And you're going to see me use some biotone, which I need to grab off my cart. Let me show you that. So I am going to go ahead and put a little of this starter fertilizer in these pots, only because of what I shared with you in the greenhouse, especially those pansies and even the hellebores. They have been raised with getting a regular dose of food, of fertilizer, to get them beautiful for sale. And so sometimes they shock when you take them out and transplant them in something that doesn't have a lot of nutrients. So I'll throw a little bit of this in there. Now, even though they're only going to be in these pots maybe 6 weeks, it's still worth doing, and I have plenty of this on hand. So that's my process, at least. That's my thinking. So I'm going to do that. So I think what I'll do for you all, so you can see up close what I'm doing, I'm going to pull the camera in really close, maybe to this pot over here, since it's in the sun a little bit more than the other one. And I'll give you a close-up view of how I'm going to fit these plants in the pots. And also I want to give you some specs on the plants. If you've never grown hellebores before, there might be some good information that I could share. So I'm going to do that next. All right, so let's talk about this hellebore. I think the common term for hellebores are Lenten rose, even though it's not a rose. And let's see what it says here. This is Anna's red Lenten rose. This is going to get really big in the landscape. In the pot, it won't get big because the smaller your pot, it restricts the growth more. But once I move this in the first part of May out of these pots and into the actual ground in my north-facing bed, hellebores can get 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. Usually they're on the 2 by 2 foot range. So yeah, that's the plan here. Now, I'm going to bring the camera in really close in a little bit. Do you see how big this pot is? So that's got to fit down in there. So I added some fresh soil, but I'm going to have to take some of that soil out because there's no way that that is going to fit. But I'll get the camera in close so you can see how I'm going to make this big plant fit nicely in this pot. So I'm going to take it out of its nursery container, and I might put the container down in here. So let me see how that's going to work. And they have put some kind of mulch on the top of, I don't know what that is. Shredded, it's finely shredded. I think these are holes for rice. A lot of people are using that as a mulch. So you want to put it, of course, in your pot on the same level it was in its container. So you can see this would be way too high to plant it. So I'm going to have to dig even more soil out of there. I sort of forget how small the interior of these beautiful concrete pots are. Do you see how wide the pots are? They're super heavy duty and thick, but they don't really hold a ton of soil. So yeah, it's been a year since I planted this pot, so I sort of have forgotten. So I've got some soil in the bottom. Oh yeah, look at that. Okay, I like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put soil in and then I'll gently lift this out. So I'll put soil all around the outside, and if I do it right, then I will be able to lift that pot out. And let me get some more of this fresh soil here. You get the idea. And you can even, if you're in a big hurry, it's okay if you get soil inside your container, because you can just dump that right back into your soil container. So let's see. I'm just going to pack it in nicely. And I'm making a mess, but that's okay. That's what a leaf blower is for. I'm going to bring that out at the very end and blow all this soil off the patio and take care of that. All right, so let's see if I did it. I'm going to gently, very gently twist and lift. All right, you see what I'm left with? So when I take the original plant, I'm going to remove some of this from the top. It's got a really well-developed root system. I'm going to plop that right back in, and we're going to press down some more and get that a nice tight fit. Well, I have some decision making because I really want to add some pansies around the edge, and I'm going to have to squeeze them in because, as you saw, there was not a lot of room between the root ball and the edge of this container. So, this will be interesting. Let me see here what I can manage. And I've got 4, and these will get fairly good size. So let's see here. I think they're pretty small root balls. I think I can possibly wedge them in the edge. Let's try it and see what happens. Again, these are baby plants. They'll fill this in quite well. Yep, that's going to work. So I'm going to just tuck them in the edges where I can, and I think they'll end up filling in quite nicely. So let's do this one. Put that in, and the one in the back. I'm going to save the other ones for another project, I think. I think 4 is going to be enough because, as I said, each individual pansy, it'll really fill in and get nice size. So I think that's good. I think I'm going to need just a touch more soil around the pansies. And of course, just like every container you ever plant, when you water them in, the soil level is going to go down a bit, but you don't want to fill them so full that every time you water, the soil spills out over the top. That's no fun. But you know, we've all done it. Might happen today, but eventually this soil will settle down as I continue to water them in. All right, so the next thing I need to do is to clean up, to blow the dirt off and water them in, and then I want to share a couple of more tips and tricks for spring containers. Well, even though we're playing with shadows filming today, I wanted to get this filmed in the morning, but it just didn't work out. But I thought I'd bring the camera in so you could get a close-up view at these lovely Hellebores and my pretty little pansies. There's my shadow. Let me come around here and see if I can get a decent shot. There they are. Well, thank you all so much for hanging out with me today as I got to finally do something I have been waiting weeks and months to do, and that is to get into some container planning for the season. I just love these Hellebores. I'm going to love them even more when they go into the landscape and can really put on some size. And I think 18 to 24 inches tall and wide. So I think they're just about at their max height in a container, but I'm thinking maybe those of you that grow them, tell me, can they get bigger in the landscape? I bet they can, like a lot of other things. So anyhow, I just love the soft dusty rose and the purples. I didn't realize there was going to be a little yellow tinge to this pansy, but isn't that darling? So anyhow, I am hoping that you all are going to be able to get out in your garden soon and start your containers. And if you have already planted up some containers where you live, leave a comment in the section below and let me know what were your first things to plant this year for your spring garden. So until next time, I wish everybody out there happy gardening.